want to check the compression on it and see if number one's come around, because in my mind there's two main things we need to do this thing. One is the exhaust manifold gasket, because it's driving me crazy, and the other one is clean out this carburetor because it runs okay-ish, but it definitely has some carburetor issues, and it's got some kind of linkage with the choke, some kind of choke linkage issue, because it will not, I have to come out here and manually close the choke. It's not working correctly. So I need to figure all that out. Okay, look back to footage. It's actually number 2. So we got number 1, number 2, and it looks like it was right around 70 after running it. So let's see if it's come up any since then. We can see how bad it's leaking. It's discolored the plug because the exhaust is leaking so bad right there. So let's pull the plug, see what it is. Well, right around 60 or 70, about 68. So yeah, where does that leave us? I think, to be honest, we'll probably need to do a leak down test on this thing. Try to see where it's leaking. Well, I got the heat shield loose so we can at least see the bolts. And unfortunately, I don't think I can get the heat shield off. Well, it's not going well. So, I was very careful with this one. Broke it. Second one is loose and coming out okay. Third one I feel like is gonna break. Finally got the shroud out. I was able to just keep working on it and got it out. So that's allowed me to get 6-point sockets. I'm using 14 millimeter because it fits a little bit snugger than a 9/16, and then 14 millimeter fits a little loose on them, and 9/16 is very loose. I think we're gonna halt, and I think we're gonna do a real quick assessment of number 2 cylinder. We're gonna back it up a little bit so that we're still in shade, but where our air hose will reach. So we're gonna back it up right in there. That's gonna allow us to put air to that cylinder. With the 2 rocker arms off, those 2 valves will be closed. We'll take the intake and exhaust rocker arms off so that those valves are closed. That way we don't have to worry about, holding the engine in a certain position, to make sure those valves aren't open. They're just gonna be closed, and we can listen and see where we're leaking. I think that's our best option here. We'll set the regulator on the compressor, to 120, 130, maybe 150, just something that should hold, a value that it should hold. And we'll see where it's leaking, because I kind of think I'm at that position where if we are leaking out the intake or exhaust, I think I will pull this head and do a valve job on it. I think that's pretty much where we're at here, as long as it's not rings. But I think this engine's fairly healthy. Otherwise, when we start to tear it down, we'll probably just run through compression test on that side again, just to make sure it's good. And if all's good, we'll probably only do this side. Let me back it up, and I'm gonna get the valve cover off real quick, and we'll start going to town with getting this all checked out. Well, to be honest, I forgot how absolutely disgusting this engine is. And this is after I cleaned it some, but it's so sludgy. Continue with our diagnosis. Like I said, I don't think it's rings. And it's possible we could have a scenario like we did before where the lifter is not seating all the way, or not collapsing all the way. All right, 130 PSI. And blowing out the intake. So intake valve. Let's move that away. intake valves right here. Pouring out the intake. Let's just do the exhaust. The exhaust is sealing. I can hear it when I hit the exhaust. Intake valve number 2, burnt, whatever. Could be a valve seat issue. Who knows? Who knows why? But it's just pouring out the intake. Not even trying. Well, I guess it's trying to seal, but there is a ton of air. Let me see if I can represent that in a way for y'all. Let's take a bag. We're gonna put it over the carburetor. And it's got a hole in it. I think you're gonna like this. Okay. Plugging up. See our bag? Our bag is blowing up. And I'm going to walk over to the exhaust and just feel the exhaust. Nothing on the exhaust. Put my hand over it, no pressure or anything on it. It's all intake. What concerns me is the fact that, well, there's two things. One, we know for sure it's not a rocker or a lifter that's pumped up too much because we've taken that out of, we've eliminated that equation because we don't have rocker arms on it. What's concerning to me is the fact that hammering on the intake valve, you know, making the intake valve go down and seat back up seems to make no difference. It's a major leak. It's probably part of what's the reason this thing pops back through the carburetor. I was thinking it was carburetor issues, but it could easily be combustion leaking, you know, because that cylinder is kind of firing now. Combustion leaking back into the intake and possibly igniting some some fuel in the intake, and you know, you get a little pop, a little explosion in the intake. So I think we've definitely got a valve issue on this cylinder. Like I said, I think I'm just going to slap it back together with the intention that we are going to pull this head off, and we're going to run a compression test on the other side. So, written on our engine gasket set, I just ended up getting a full set. It's the cheapest way to get head gasket, intake, and all that stuff. Number one, 150. Number two, we know we had issues. It's at 80. When I did the test before, it was at 60. This doesn't mean that it's improved. You know, when I did the other test, I had all the other plugs still in the engine, so the engine was turnover slow. This test, I had all the plugs out, so engines turn over faster. So, yeah. So it came up a little bit only because it's spinning faster. When I pulled this plug, it is firing. So that leak, even though it's leaking compression off, it's enough. And probably, you know, with it idling, or it may not be firing at idle, but above idle, it probably kicks in, you know, because it's gonna, faster it turns, it's gonna increase the compression a little bit, as we see here, you know, up to a certain point. Number three is 108. I need to We probably need to throw our compression tester in there like we did on this one, and just see if we can tell where this one's leaking, just so we have a little bit of an idea of what's going on with number 3. And number 4's okay-ish. I think the plan will be, if you've been sneak peeking over here, is we're just going to take a look at all these valves, probably lap them. I'm not going to do a valve job on it. I've heard on these, if you grind the valve seats, you lose the hardened seats. I don't know if that's true or not, so I'm kind of going to try to, if I can, not grind the valve seats and just lap them. And if we can get a good pattern on the valve and on the seat by just lapping them, we're just going to do that. But we'll do whatever we have to, but that's the plan right now, is to just do that if we can get away with it. If we have to grind them, we have to grind them, but we're just going to see. And we'll check valve guides and all that. These heads are not worth putting money into, so we're only trying to get them repaired. 5, 150, 6, 145, 7, 140, 8, 148. These, I'm happy with these numbers. This, I don't think we have any issues on the driver's side, which is good. We can leave this head in place. These numbers I'm happy with, and I think the more this thing runs, I think the more these will even out. But even this distribution, you know, you've got a 10 psi difference. That's not that bad, really. That's less than 10%. You know, 10% of 150 would be 15. So to me, I'm happy with these. Not happy with these. This one kind of surprised me. So yeah, we're gonna need to investigate this one. And I actually checked it twice just to make sure we didn't have some kind of a gauge issue. Ran through it. I ran through all of them, and then I circled back to number 3. So I got this number twice. So we've got some work to do. We're going to pull the intake, we're going to pull the passenger side head, and we're going to investigate. I've ordered a intake valve for number 2. When I placed this Rock Auto order, I think the valve was $6.99. So I went ahead and bought it since I was doing an order anyway, and I've got it. So yeah, but we'll check number 3, do a little more investigating, and see what's going on here. Another intake valve issue. It kind of blows it up. It's not near, but you can definitely feel air coming out. That's as far as I'm going to take it. I just wanted to make sure, to be honest, that it wasn't a ring issue. And I don't hear any coming out of the crankcase. I didn't check the exhaust, but I can definitely hear it and feel it coming out of the intake. So don't think we have an exhaust thing. I didn't hear it, you know, in the exhaust area. This thing, intake, or the exhaust manifold gasket leaks so bad, I think we would hear it there. But yeah. So intake valve number 3, we know we need to work with, and we'll lap it, make sure it's got a good pattern, make sure it's not bent, because you know, it could be bent slightly, causing an issue, and if it is, we'll get another valve, or we have one. So we know we have an issue with 2 intake valves. We've got 1 new intake valve as a replacement. If we need to get another one, we will. So we got a lot of work to do here. That's going to do it for this video. We'll start tearing into this thing on the next video and see what we find out. Get this head off of here. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment down below, hit the like button, and subscribe for more.